Hey, it's interesting, right? Where you guys probably have the best advice for grown men, then grown men have advice for you on the topic. Yeah. Isn't that neat?
Yeah. Feelings. Everyone has them. It's not like everyone's happy, everyone's sad, everyone's depressed, like at some points, and yeah.
A lot of people probably have more good days than bad days, so there's probably more good feelings than bad.
Sometimes girls have feelings that boys don't have. 20 or 18.
Maybe like when they turn adults, maybe. So like maybe in their 20s, maybe when.
About somewhere in their 30s or 20s.
I don't think there is an age. Everyone can cry. Doesn't really matter which age.
I don't know, they must think it's a lot worse than when a boy cries because it's sort of like less likely, because I guess men still feel it inside of them, but I guess they just don't take it out that way, and boys cry a lot more than men would, so the men, I guess people think it must be a lot, like really bad instead of just bad.
Being a man would mean as you don't cry as much as you were a baby or a boy or a teenager or whatever.
Why you shouldn't cry is because sometimes when you're really upset, you cry a lot, and when you're mostly happy, you don't cry a lot.
If you're crying, try not to, like, if you don't want to feel more like worse, then don't like be out there like where everyone's walking by, because there could be a bully like walking by, and then they would make fun of you. So I think we cry because our body needs to express something or let out our feelings.
Maybe it's embarrassing, or like some people think it's embarrassing to cry, so they don't do it.
I think everybody has the same amount of emotions, and just it depends how you take them out, depending on what person you are again.
If you want to cry, then you should, because otherwise it's like your emotions are just staying in a bottle, basically, and they can't get out.
Quite the thoughts there from some boys about feelings and emotions. So is there still a stigma around men and boys when it comes to showing emotion, and how does that affect their long-term mental health? Here to shed some light is Lance Drozda. He is founder of I Am Heart, which offers programs for teen and preteen boys focused on empathy, compassion, and emotional awareness. Welcome to Alberta Primetime, Lance.
Well, thank you.
Lance, why did you start I Am Heart, and what's the intent?
Well, the reason why I started I Am Heart, being a father of 2 young boys and watching them slowly move through their adolescence, and seeing that it's really about trying to be a parent with boys and with around emotional expression and having them navigate through the world where sometimes it's not the most friendly for boys to show, characteristics such as empathy and kindness and vulnerability. And my role as a parent in trying to kind of instill those characteristics with them, and then, for our organization is how do we start to move those types of concepts and characteristics to boys just in general on expressing feelings and being authentically accepting of themselves in a world that sometimes is not the most free for them to express, vulnerability and those types of feelings.
Okay, back to that video that we saw here before we started a conversation. You were there with our camera crew talking to those boys, hearing some mixed thoughts. Pretty common views?
Generally, they're very, very common views with boys around the environments that they find themselves in, is that knowing that they really have this need, as we all do as humans, to authentically accept how we feel and express that to others and that human connection that comes with that. But then juxtaposition against that is that on how they are in environments that maybe not necessarily adopt to that, or environments that make that safe for them. So with our organization is really we've established programs to help boys, align to that, not only their own self-acceptance on how they feel and around expression, but also that leads towards them accepting others around them as well too. That increases things around self-esteem, self-confidence, and just overall self-acceptance of how they feel and how they express that in the world that surrounds them.
One boy references holding back tears so that a bully wouldn't see it. How big of roles do bullying and peer pressure play?
Well, they do, and I think that it plays a role in two areas. First of all, for those that have been bullied, but then as well as those that are actually bullying. And one of the interesting things that came up as we talk with kids is that this misalignment of how they see is that where there's this where bullies are actually are not only oppressors but also have certain sensitivities and vulnerabilities as well. And some of the conversations that we've had with kids is that they really understand that, bullies kind of are trying to persuade those around them from not being sensitive and vulnerable, but those same boys have an understanding that those bullies do themselves actually cry and have those sensitive feelings themselves. And so it's a really interesting perspective, both from for children that have been on the receiving end of sometimes negative behavior, but then as well as those that are actually responsible for it. And with our organization, we're really trying to focus on both of those spectrums, because there really are both ends of the bullying spectrum really do align to things around empathy and compassion, and sometimes the behavior doesn't line up with what we as parents or teachers or really hope that it is. But our organization is really focused on kind of those things around empathy, compassion, and vulnerability.
And Lance, what is at stake for males as adults if they aren't, or if they are lacking that emotional empowerment component?
Well, what happens is that especially, well, there's really two aspects here that we see. Is first of all that we have children that sometimes have, what would be perceived as behavioral issues in school, and they tend to get a lot of attention as to, how do you kind of regulate both emotionally and behavioral wise, but as well as with children that, definitely kind of conform and have good grades and seem to be very functional in the school environments, but have yet also have not have that misalignment between how they feel and how they express that. And what we do find is that as kids get older and older into adulthood, is that some of these issues that we find that we're hoping to address now as in their youth tend to come out as adults. And those are really around about, self-acceptance of emotions and emotional regularity and those types of things.
Statistics Canada shows that men are 3 times more likely to commit suicide than women, and the highest rates happen in the 40 to 59 age group. Lance, do you feel the way men have historically been taught to deal with emotions factors into that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. One of the highest, risks that we see for both in youth with risky behavior and decisions, but as well as into adults and men, is emotional self-regulation and the acceptance of that. And really, that does align to a lot of mental health issues that arise in later in adulthood as well. And so that's why with our organization, we're really trying to promote things around compassion, acceptance, and vulnerability to help them in that self-acceptance and be able to manage the world around them from an emotional perspective. There's really what we really kind of realize as well too is that emotions are not really gender specific; they're human specific. Mm-hmm. And so, in taking that approach, that we realize that men are just as vulnerable with their emotional feelings as females are.
Yeah, I think not enough people know that. Lance, bottom line, overall, what do you hope to accomplish through your programs?
What we're really trying to do is create an environment where boys have an increased acceptance both within themselves and within the world around them, around emotion, compassion, and empathy. And we realize that those types of things, make the world a better place. And it also helps children kind of navigate this complex world that they find themselves in.